What's up, everyone, and welcome back. This is part two of our week three injury breakdown and game breakdown. So far, we've covered all the 1 o'clock games Eastern time. So now we are getting into the afternoon, the late afternoon, the 4 o'clock games. So we'll get to the Sunday night game in this episode, and then Monday night's game will be in a separate episode by itself. So starting out with the first 4 o'clock game, we got the New York Jets going up against the Indianapolis Colts. Some major injuries in this game. The Jets have or at least throughout the week, they've had a ton of injuries. But the biggest ones are Brashad Perriman. He is out. We got Braxton Berrios, who should be coming in for Brashad Perriman. He's questionable, but he's probably going to be the main pass catcher there if they could get anything going through the air. Jamison Crowder is out, and that's why Berrios does get that nod. Chris Hogan was a full participant, so he's another one that instead of having Jamison Crowder and Brashad Perriman, they're stuck with Braxton Berrios and Chris Hogan. Other than that, it's a long list, but not a lot of really fantasy relevant players. On the Colts side of things, you got Jack Doyle, who was a full participant, so that kind of boosts or that kind of drops Mo Alley-Cox down a little bit. I'm probably not starting either, but there was always that sneaky play of Mo Alley-Cox, but now Jack Doyle kind of puts a damper in that. T.Y. Hilton did not participate, but that's just kind of how it's been for the past few years with him, maintenance days and just taking days off. So he should be good to go. I don't think his injury is too bad if it is an injury at all. And then that's it. So the Jets do have a long list, but nobody really big. Except for Crowder, I guess, is the biggest one. Everybody else is really unplayable. And then the Colts are same situation. Everybody that you want to play should be there and good to go.
Yeah, I'll start off with the quarterbacks on this one. Phillip Rivers, it was really a tale of two games. The first game he came out, he had 46 pass attempts, and then they were kind of, run heavy last week against the Vikings after they got up early. So I'm looking at Jonathan Taylor in this game. I really like him. He's one you could probably put in your DFS lineups or your regular leagues and have confidence he's going to have a good game. I don't really think there's anybody from the Jets side that I'm too excited about playing. Maybe Chris Herndon in there or Chris Hogan as a deep sleeper type of play, but. Mostly you're going to be playing your Colts, T.Y. Hilton probably if he's going to be able to go, and then if you're in some super flex or two quarterback leagues, I'd be fine playing Rivers in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Really, no Jets for me. I'm in one of those super big Jordan leagues that you know about that where it's like six flexes, and I tried to get Barrios, but he was already taken. I mean, I would have had to play him there. Other than that, not really grabbing anybody from the Jets. Herndon, I mean, we've already covered a lot of the tight ends in the 1 o'clock games. Herndon for me is kind of in the same category as like your Drew Sample or your I don't know, your Eric Ebron, where there's definitely going to be guys that are going to be better that you could pick from, and you don't have to go with Herndon, even though on paper it's like, okay, he's the only option. They have to throw to somebody. I'm just not trusting it. I don't know. I just, until I see anything from the Jets, I really can't play anybody from them. The Colts, Jonathan Taylor is a must start. I mean, regardless of matchup, I think he's going to be a must start for the rest of the year. I got him in my McCaffrey league, so kind of lucky there. I mean, I'm lucky with what happened in week one with Marlon Mack. I mean, unfortunate for him, but in the fantasy world, it definitely helps me out. So I wasn't really aggressive in trying to get Mike Davis because I know that I had Montgomery, Connor, and Jonathan Taylor kind of on the bench, so I could replace McCaffrey pretty easily there, but Taylor's a must start. Hilton, I mean, if you got him, throw him in there as like a wide receiver 2 or a flex. Michael Pittman could be a sneaky play too. Zach Pascal is another one that could be sneaky. I know he was, according to Sleeper, he was one of the more picked up guys this past week because of Paris Campbell going down. So if you have to play him in a flex, definitely a solid option there. But Yeah, I mean, we pretty much covered all the positions kind of in one chunk here. It's not going to be a huge, sexy fantasy game. It's going to be, I think the Colts win. I think the Colts win easily. Their biggest thing is just get out of this game healthy, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. The line is really in favor of the Colts. They're like 12-point favorites in this game. So, if you're betting, that kind of implies the Colts are gonna run away with this game. So it definitely reiterates what we both said. Jonathan Taylor is probably the best fantasy player in this game.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest line of the week. That's a lot of people's suicide picks. So, yeah, I mean, I'd feel comfortable rolling with the Colts if I had to pick them. I don't know who I picked. I think I picked the Colts in week one, so I can't pick them now. But if you have them available, that's a good choice there. The next game we got is the Panthers at the Chargers. On the Panthers side of things, obviously not listed is McCaffrey because he's on IR, but he is obviously not playing. Other than that, they don't really have any offensive players that are out except for some linemen. The Chargers, they are without Tyrod Taylor, so Justin Herbert is getting the start there. They got Justin Jackson back at practice, but I still think that Joshua Kelly is the guy behind Austin Eckler there. I really wouldn't worry about Justin Jackson that much. Hunter Henry was listed on the injury report throughout the week, but he was a full participant. Defensively, they got a couple guys that are limited or did not participate. The biggest one being Melvin Ingram, but they should be good to go, especially against a Panthers defense or a Panthers offense that is without their top weapon and a team that has struggled so far this year. But breaking down the quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, he's a nice sneaky play. He's kind of in that Joe Burrow category where you kind of want to play him, but at the same time, it's like there's probably some better options out there. But against the Panthers, it would be too bad. He's more of a DFS play for me. I might throw him in there. I don't really want to risk a week 3 loss because I played Herbert and tried to get cute, but he could be a solid option. Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, the Chargers defense is pretty tough. They really didn't hold Burrow or Mahomes in check, really, but they did. They've done a good enough job to have both of those games be really close games, won by 3 against the Bengals, and then they took the Chiefs to overtime. So they're not blowing teams out, but they're not. I mean, it's not like they're shutting quarterbacks down. Teddy, I'm probably staying away from regardless. So that's the quarterbacks for me. I play Herbert as like a QB2. Teddy is closer to a QB3 for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the Chargers defense is, honestly a little bit better than what I gave them credit for coming into the year. Like you said, they were good against the Bengals there. Were able to hold him to, under, 20 points and get the win there. And they really, they were pretty solid against Pat Mahomes, and he only had a great fantasy day because he connected with Hill, in the fourth quarter for that long touchdown. But, so. I would lean for the Chargers in this game. I think I'd be fine, throwing Herbert there in a couple of DFS lineups, just to go for the cheap side. Teddy as well. It's not as much. I probably only have a few shares of him, but deeper leagues, you might roll him out there if you're hoping that he'll do some damage in the run game or be able to try to pick up some points during garbage time if they're trying to catch up here, but. This was a tough one for me to pick. I think I'm going to go with the Chargers for this one, but we do our admin picks, and I hadn't filled this one in until just last night. I finally made the pick for the Chargers because I think this game could go either way, but I would expect the defense for the Chargers to come out and play a little bit better. So you're probably setting your Teddy Bridgewater if you have him on your bench.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a good game, but yeah, I got to lean the Chargers too. The running backs, you got Mike Davis kind of taking over duties in Carolina for at least the next 3 weeks. That's how the IR is working this year. So Christian McCaffrey at the minimum is going to be out for 3 weeks. Mike Davis, he was one of the hottest pickups this past waiver period. I'd probably throw him in as like an RB3 or a flex play. I'm not relying too much on him, but definitely he's going to get the volume. He's going to be in there because McCaffrey is not. It's not like one of those things where I don't know, for example, you got like Frank Gore and then Kalen Balaj there. They might be split in time. You know that Mike Davis is going to be the main guy at least for the foreseeable future. In LA, as I already mentioned, you got Josh Kelly, but that's Austin Eckler is going to be the main guy there. He is an RB1. I think he could be a top five RB this week. The Panthers have been pretty bad against opposing teams running backs, so Austin Eckler could get a couple touchdowns, get some decent yardage to the air and on the ground. Joshua Kelly even has a chance to come in and put up some solid fantasy points as like a flex play if you had to play him. So I'm comfortable playing both of the Chargers running backs in this game.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think a lot of people are going to put Mike Davis in there just based on the volume that he's going to get, and I echo your thoughts with Eckler and Kelly there. I feel like Eckler's a strong play, and Kelly can maybe grab a touchdown or two to make his day relevant.
And then the wide receivers, I'm a huge DJ Moore guy. I've not taken him out of my lineup, and I don't plan on it. He does have a tougher matchup this week, but I'm still going to be playing him. Robbie Anderson is a guy that has gotten a lot of volume in the past 2 weeks since coming over from the Jets in the offseason. He is he's a solid play too. It seems like Teddy does seem to like him, and especially if Harris does kind of cover DJ Moore, it could open up Robbie Anderson a little bit more. The secondary for the Chargers is pretty solid. It's not just Harris back there; they do have some other guys, so it's not like Robbie Anderson is going to be wide open or anything like that. But he might be the more comfortable play if you don't want to risk DJ Moore getting shut down. But I think DJ Moore is probably going to get, of everybody that benefits from the McCaffrey injury, I think DJ Moore is the one that benefits the most. So I think he should get a little bit of a boost, and he's coming off a nice 120-yard game last week. Really not. Nobody else really worries me. I mean, Curtis Samuel, he could get a little bit of trickery in the run game, especially with McCaffrey out. Maybe like a handful of carries there, but not really too much of a threat in the passing game. If they're down by quite a bit, you might get a little garbage time looks just to play catch up. But I'm not really racing to my waiver wire to pick up Curtis Samuel to play him in this game. I like Moore, and I like Robbie Anderson. And then on the Chargers side, I think Keenan Allen gets a boost with Justin Herbert in there. Hunter Henry, he could be a top 5 tight end this week. And then Mike Williams, I think Mike Williams was a little bit better with Tyrod Taylor. He kind of gets a little bit of a downgrade with me with Justin Herbert. Kind of got to see how the next 1 or 2 weeks goes and see how the volume is split up. But I'm more on Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry for the Chargers.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think right away we saw Herbert come in and the offense just open up a little bit more. It seemed like they were very conservative against the Bengals, and that's what kind of led it to be a low-scoring game. And then, they put up 20 points against the Chiefs, but Herbert was throwing the ball down the field. He was making some good throws, good decisions, and so it's definitely promising if you're a Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry owner. I feel like it kind of locks in Henry as a solid top 10 play on a weekly basis, and this is a good matchup for both of them. On the Panthers side, I would agree with you. I think Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel probably only plays if you're in a really deeper league or something like that. And then maybe Robbie you can throw in the normal league if you don't have many other good options. But DJ Moore should have a good uptick in targets and receptions, and we know that he's good at hauling those in, and you and I have that DJ Moore bet, so we're both following that one closely to see how he's gonna progress throughout the year. But a good game all around. I feel like we could either see another high shootout or kind of a lower scoring affair like the Chargers have been in the last couple weeks. The line's only at 43.5 points, so generally towards the lower end point total for what the sports books are expecting in this one. So those are some nice plays that I think you can put in there and expect some solid production.
All right, and then I think the only one that we haven't mentioned was Ian Thomas for the Carolina Panthers. I think he is avoidable at this point. It's you're just kind of relying too much on the Carolina offense. If you like DJ Moore, if you like Robbie Anderson, if you like Mike Davis, and then you're throwing Ian Thomas in, it's just too much for Teddy Bridgewater's support. So I'd probably
Hmm.
stay away from Ian Thomas. Going into the next game, we got the Cowboys at the Seahawks. That's a 4:25 start. The Cowboys, for the most part, are going into this game, as far as their offensive weapons go, pretty much healthy, with the exception of Blake Jarwin, who was lost in Week 1. But other than that, I mean, their wide receivers are good, their running backs are good, Dak's good, so they're all good to go. The Seahawks have had some bigger names on the injury report throughout the week, but they as of yesterday, as practice, they were all full participants. That's including Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Chris Carson. So they should all be good to go, and Greg Olson too. They should all be good to go. No issues there. So it looks like we're going to have a pretty healthy game as far as the offensive side of the ball goes for both of these teams. The quarterback battle. I mean, both of these guys are and could be QB1s. They could potentially even end up as the QB1s. Seattle has been terrible against the pass this year so far, allowing 450 yards passing to Matt Ryan and then another 389 yards passing to, or 397, I think it was, to Cam Newton. So almost back to back 400-yard games passing. Against the Seattle defense, and then Dak Prescott comes in and he's got his plethora of weapons. So I mean, Dak realistically could finish as the QB1 this week. And then Russell Wilson on the other side, he's been as good as just about anybody. I mean, he's having an MVP type season so far. If the Cowboys are passing all over the Seahawks, then you know that Russell Wilson's going to have to turn around and pass right back over on the Cowboys. So, if I have either of these guys, I'm playing them, and I'm playing them with confidence, and I am very happy going into tomorrow at the 4 o'clock time slot with either of these guys.
Yeah, for sure. This one is going to be some fantasy fireworks. Hopefully, the line for this one's 57 points, and so that's like two more touchdowns than the last one we were just talking about with the Chargers and the Panthers. So the sportsbooks they're expecting a shootout in this one, and the offenses are geared up to do so. You mentioned both defenses have allowed a lot of points against them, a lot of yards against them. So I think we'll get into it, but I think this is a really good matchup for all players involved in this one, and especially Wilson and Dak. The whole mantra for Wilson has just been let Russ cook, and I think both of them are going to cook in this game. I'd expect top 5 performances from both of them, and I'd agree. One of them probably can finish as the quarterback one out of this contest.
It's definitely going to be a fun game to watch, and this is probably my toughest game to pick for the week. I don't know. I mean, I want Seattle, but it's tough, especially after seeing what Dallas did last week to Atlanta. But the running back side of things, you got Zeke Elliott. You're not benching him. He's your RB1. Throw him in there and feel confident. He does catch out of the backfield. He runs with power, runs with finesse. He's just overall, he's one of the best running backs in the league. He's on your team. He's in your lineup. Chris Carson, he's been really good. He's for a 7th round pick from Seattle a couple of years ago. He's definitely stepped up and been just pretty consistent. He's I'm comfortable playing him. I know there was some leagues where I was targeting him, but I didn't get him, and then other leagues where I just didn't want to grab him as early as what he went. But yeah, I mean, I have no problem playing either of the running backs in this game.
Yeah, for sure. He had 17 attempts. Talking about Carson, that was 11 more than he had in the first one in the first game. So that's a very promising sign. He was definitely utilized more in the rushing attack in week 2, and he didn't get quite as many targets and receptions in the second game, but he does give you that little bit of a boost there, catching passes out of the backfield. He caught a really nice one towards the end of the game there against the Patriots that got him the touchdown and really boosted up his fantasy game. But yeah, Ezekiel Elliott is just an auto start. You're not even thinking about what his matchup is or what you can expect. You're just putting him in there, and you're more often than not you're getting a really good game from Zeke.
All right, the wide receivers. There's a handful of them here. From Dallas, you got Amari Cooper, you got Michael Gallup, and you got CeeDee Lamb. From Seattle, you have DK Metcalf, you got Tyler Lockett. Um, Honestly, I mean, I'm probably fine with all of them now. I typically don't draft multiple players from the same team, especially from the same position. So I'm not really in the predicament to where I have to choose one over the other. But if I'm in 5 different leagues and I got one of these wide receivers on each team, I'm playing them, and I don't have a problem with it. Now, obviously, the odds and chances that all of them that one out of the 5 doesn't do very well or they're kind of left off the stat sheet or something like that is pretty good because you're relying on 5 different guys from the same game at the same position. But I'm still like I'm putting my hope out there. I'm putting all my chips into the basket, and I'm starting all of them. I mean, DK Metcalf showed last week that I wouldn't necessarily say he is matchup proof, but he's getting there. I mean, kind of just taking that touchdown to the house against Stephon Gilmore. Tyler Lockett, he gets targeted a lot by Russell Wilson. Him and Russell Wilson go back for a few years now. Michael Gallup, he's up there in targets on the year. Or not Michael Gallup, but Amari Cooper's up there in targets on the year. Because of that, Michael Gallup does get a little benefit from being. He's probably of the 5, probably the lowest of the 5, because CeeDee Lamb is kind of even jumping over Michael Gallup, and he's getting targeted too by Dak Prescott. So I'm fine playing all 5, anywhere between the wide receiver 1 and flex range, and I'm happy with it, and I'm not going to look back.
Yeah, for sure. I'll start off with my guy DK Metcalf here, and I think one of the more intriguing things about him and what makes him so good is doesn't really show up on the stat sheet. It's how physical he is in the game, just going down the field, blocking, showing a big body out there to get in front of his face, and that's what he was doing to Gilmore. That it really stood out that he was getting right up into his face, and that's the reigning defensive player of the year, and he was going toe to toe and obviously caught that long touchdown on it, just made it look easy. So, I'll go out on the limb and say that I think Metcalf is matchup proof, and you can just put him out there every week, and you're going to have solid production that you're going to be fine with. And you touched on Tyler Lockett getting the targets. Both of these guys are good starts every single week, and especially in this matchup. If you're in a deeper league, yeah, I'd feel a little confidence, even throwing David Moore out there, just a third option that, can, provide a little bit of a spark for you. He had a touchdown in last week's game as well. And, for the Cowboys, you got the big 3 with Cooper, Gallup, and Lamb. And I think CeeDee Lamb has really, solidified himself as the number 2 role. So we'll see how he does moving forward, but I expect all of them to have really good fantasy production out of this game.
Yeah, no doubt. And then the only other player that you could really throw into the mix that I would feel comfortable starting is Dalton Schultz. He's been getting some targets there for Dallas, especially with Blake Jarwin out. I mean, I'm not really all in on Greg Olsen or Will Dissly or anybody like that, any of the tight ends from the Seahawks, but Schultz would be a guy from the Cowboys that if I wouldn't even say desperate, but if I just need a tight end, if I lost, say, George Kittle, or if I don't like the matchup of Chris Herndon or somebody like that, I would throw Dalton Schultz in there. But at the same time, I'd have to kind of see across all my leagues, like, what kind of Cowboys receivers I have and where I'm playing them, because I really don't want to rely on 4 guys in some must win games. But Schultz is definitely an option out there if you need a tight end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he had 10 targets himself last week, and I know a lot of those came in the come from behind kind of game plan that they were going through. But he proved to be reliable. 10 targets, he had 9 receptions off of them, nearly 100 yards, and he got into the end zone. So I think Dalton Schultz is a safe option. Maybe not throwing him out there if you have some better tight end options, but maybe if you're looking at some DFS lineups, you definitely can put him in there and have confidence he can give you a solid game.
All right, our next game we got is the Buccaneers at the Broncos. The Bucks look like they're going to get Chris Godwin back. He was a full participation in practice. Scott Miller, he was limited in practice, but if Godwin is back and Evans is there, I mean Scott Miller pretty much could be dropped. A lot of people were attacking him last week with Godwin being out, and then the solid first week that he had. But he's under the spotlight and having the option to, or having the chance to go out there and show that he could be a Tom Brady favorite. He really didn't do that last week, and kind of disappointed some people, including myself. And I already dropped him in a few leagues where I had to go pick up other positions. So Chris Godwin is back. Justin Watson is out, so it looks like they're going into the game with their top two, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Other than that, there's not really any other major injuries for the Bucks. Broncos have a few. Philip Lindsay is doubtful, so we could get a little bit of a boost back there from Royce Freeman. The wide receiver Jerry Jeudy is questionable. Drew Lock we already know is out. Cortland Sutton is out. He's out for the season, and that's pretty much it for fantasy relevant players for the Broncos. So there's a couple that are missing, but let's get into the quarterback breakdown here. You got Tom Brady up against Jeff Driscoll. And Jeff Driscoll, as you know firsthand, last week came in. He had a solid game. He was sacked, I think it was 6 times. So like just the offensive line didn't hold up for him at all. But he put together some solid drives and it was hitting some receivers and ended up with a solid stat line. But to me, he's not startable right now. The Bucks defense is pretty solid. It's they got a pretty weak secondary, but their front seven is probably one of the better front sevens in the entire league. I'm not trusting a guy like Jeff Driscoll to get into a shootout with Tom Brady and just go out there and throw up 300 yards and a couple touchdowns. I just can't see it just yet. Well, the Bucks. Tom Brady, he is, with all the injuries that Denver has on the defensive side of the ball and him getting his top targets back and looks like they're both healthy. And Gronk, even though he's been a disappointment, is now in his third game with the system, and obviously he knows Brady. We could see Tom Brady put together a solid game here, maybe a couple touchdowns, 250 yards, maybe a pick, but a solid like QB2 type game from him. So if I have him in a super flex, I'm playing him. If I'm at that area where I need to choose between like say him or Ryan Tannehill or Ben Roethlisberger, I'm probably choosing the other two. But I'm not completely against playing Tom Brady in this game.
Yeah, I'd agree with you most for the most part there. You're not really touching Driscoll and until any time. I don't think he's really gonna elevate himself to be a start worthy guy. But just looking at Brady, this is probably the last chance to start him for a couple of weeks. He's got a couple of tough matchups coming up against the Chargers defense and the Bears defense, and some of these other teams. So with the Broncos defense being a little bit banged up, I think Brady can go in there, have a nice day, and hopefully not throw too many interceptions for your fantasy totals there. But this line was only 6 points. It's only the Bucks are only favored by 6, which seems a little bit low to me. I think I have confidence making the Buccaneers my suicide pool pick for this week.
That's ballsy.
What was that?
That's a little ballsy for me.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like they really controlled the game against the Panthers, and I think it's more because of their defense coming out against a Jeff Driscoll, and I just hope I hope too, but I have the feeling that they're just going to be able to keep him in check and get to him like the Steelers defense did, and maybe create some turnovers. So that's what I think this game is going to be, more of a low scoring affair. I'll jump into the running backs here. I think it's really hard to tell how they're going to deploy these guys with Jones and Fournette, because it was kind of Jones' backfield week 1, and then it was Fournette kind of had some late push in the second game and really had a good total with 2 touchdowns for you. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how this one comes out. This one might, be the end all be all. Whoever's going to lead this backfield is probably going to have to show it in this game and really earn the confidence of Arians and Brady moving forward. So, um, like I said, we'll have to see how it goes, how the carries get distributed, but that's what I envision this game being a low scoring, grind the ball for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I'd probably lean more towards Fournette in this game. I'd be a lot more confident playing him over Ronald Jones. He did have that big fumble last week, and that kind of like shifted over to Leonard Fournette getting more looks and more carries. From the Denver side, so I'm probably benching Ronald Jones just to be clear. And then Fournette, I might throw him in as an RB2. From the Denver side, Melvin Gordon, you probably drafted him around your RB2, RB3 range. I'd be fine playing him as an RB2 or a flex, or if you lost a guy like Barkley or McCaffrey, you're kind of forced to play him, and I wouldn't hate playing him. So Gordon, I'm fine with, especially now with Lindsey out or doubtful at least. You know that more volume is going to go to Melvin Gordon, so he has more opportunities there. So yeah, I mean I'm fine with Fournette, fine with Gordon, and kind of just holding on to Rojo for another week and seeing how they distribute him a little bit more. But I think that the tides are turning more in Fournette's favor as far as the running backs go in Tampa. Moving on to the wide receivers. Again, we already touched on Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I think they're both 100% playable. You got them, you're playing them. Chris Godwin was a high round pick. I mean, I paired him up in two different leagues with Zeke Elliott. I ended up getting the third pick in a couple leagues. I picked Zeke in the first round, and then on the way back, Chris Godwin was there. And the first draft that I did, I was pretty satisfied and happy with it, and I ended up with a solid team. Then the second draft that I did, that I had the third pick, I didn't even realize that I did it. I was like, oh, Chris Godwin's here. So I grabbed him. And then I looked at my roster, and it's like very similar to the other roster that I had. But I'm fine with it. I mean, and because I picked him so high, I kind of got to play him. And it looks like he is healthy. So Evans, I'm playing. Godwin, I'm playing. Judy, definitely it's a tough one because it's a later game. Now, if it was a 1 o'clock game and he was a game time decision, I'd try to keep him into my lineup up until game time and see if he's going to play, because if he plays, I think he's going to be good. If not, there's really no wide receiver from the Broncos that I really want. I mean, Deshaun Hamilton, I'm not really into. KJ Hamler, I know you got some words on him, so I'll let you talk about him, but I got to see it a little bit more. I know he had a solid game last week, but I'm kind of just really hoping for Jerry Jeudy here, and if not, then I'm probably avoiding all wide receivers from the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, quickly, I'll go through the Bucks here. I echo what your thoughts are. I feel like both of them are going to be, safe to put in your lineup, and hope that they get some good production for you. And I really like KJ Hamler. He's a very fast guy. He showed that in college. One of the faster receivers to come out in this class, and really everybody looks at Henry Ruggs, but Hamler's really up there as well, and he kind of gets pushed aside because they had Sutton and they already drafted Judy and they had Noah Fant, and then you have the third receiver Hamler, but he might be the only healthy option at the moment. So I'm on the fence with playing him, and I kind of feel like he can definitely you can definitely put him in your lineup and really hope that, or really have confidence that he's going to have a solid game, even if Judy plays or not. And I think Melvin Gordon's probably going to be the focal point of this offense for this week. And, we kind of touched on it in the last episode when we talked about the Steelers game. He had a solid game against the Pittsburgh defense. He was able to get about 70 rushing yards on the ground, a little bit involvement in the passing game, and got himself a touchdown. And that's 2 straight weeks with a touchdown for Gordon. So I feel like he's a solid play, and I'd look for KJ Hamler, especially if Judy's out in this one, to be able to have confidence putting him into your lineup.
All right, and then finally you got the tight ends. I'm not trusting Gronk yet. OJ Howard, he's solid, and I mean we really haven't seen the offense yet with Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, and and Mike Evans and OJ Howard yet. We haven't seen that yet, so I think that we, I think he could be a decent play, but he's kind of in that same category as those. There definitely are better tight end options out there. I think I'm probably going to throw him in a DFS lineup tomorrow, and that might be it. And then kind of see how he kind of gels together with the other two wide receivers there. Noah Fant is a definite must play for me. With Judy, without Judy, with Sutton, without Sutton, I think Noah Fant is a top 12 tight end this year, which would put him in the tight end one category. And I'm trying to play him as many weeks as I can. So he's a must play for me.
Yeah, it's really weird, this whole Gronkowski situation. They bring him in, and there's been a lot of stuff kind of back and forth where he has the first game, and then he had like nothing in the second game, and Arians is saying that he's not going to target the tight end 50 times, and things like that, and then Gronk comes out and is kind of jokingly, he says that he was brought to be a blocking tight end, so he got 4 more targets than he was expecting, and so it's just kind of a weird situation. Nobody really kind of looked at this and thought Gronk was not going to be involved at all, and so it's going to be kind of intriguing to look at this going forward, if it's going to be Gronk emerges, or if it's he's the true blocking tight end, and OJ Howard's going to get the looks out of the tight end position, in the receiving game. So that's something that I'm keeping my eye on this one, and just the whole situation just is kind of a little head scratching, why they would bring in Gronk just to block, with how his career has gone, and regardless if he is a great blocking tight end or not, he's also considered one of the best tight ends of all time. In the receiving game. So definitely a situation to monitor moving forward. And then, I'd agree with what you said about Noah Fant. He's definitely probably the top receiving option in this offense now with Sutton out. And he should be relied on by Driscoll to really be that security blanket for him against this Bucs defense.
All right, our final 4 o'clock game that we got it's 4:25 is the Detroit Lions at the Arizona Cardinals, the surprising 2-0 Arizona Cardinals, which, not to toot my own horn, but I did call them for a wild card team this year. We got from the Detroit side, you got Kenny Galladay is questionable, but it's leaning more towards him playing than not, which hopefully he does. He's kind of burned a couple of my lineups so far this year, but I definitely need him to play, and I think that this Detroit Lions team can turn around. I mean, one player doesn't make the whole team, but Kenny Galladay is the kind of guy that he could definitely help turn them around a little bit, and have those losses maybe turn into either closer losses or possibly even wins. And then from Arizona, the biggest names that were on the list, but not really anything to worry about. DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald were both full participants, but I mean, it's just the stage of their careers, and it seems like DeAndre Hopkins is on the list every single week, even going back to Houston. Larry Fitzgerald is just, I mean, he's been around for 16 years now. He deserves to just take a couple days off, and that's exactly what he's doing. And then Christian Kirk, he is out, so that possibly could boost up Fitz a little bit. I don't think it's possible to boost up Hopkins. He's going to be the number 1, number 2 wide receiver of the week, but Christian Kirk maybe he turns Fitzgerald into a flex play. But getting into the quarterbacks here, Matt Stafford, if Kenny Galladay is back and he's got his whole plethora of weapons there, I think Matt Stafford could be a solid either low-end QB1 to high-end to mid-range QB2. I'm fine playing him if I'm kind of on the fence about somebody else. Kyler Murray on the other side, he's definitely a QB1. He's a must play. He could be a top 5 quarterback, top 3 quarterback this week. Most weeks he's going to be in that QB1 range. His rushing ability gets him up there. He can pass. He's got weapons galore. The only thing really stopping him is him, and he hasn't really shown it yet this year. So he's a must play every single week from the quarterback position.
Yeah, he really has benefited from getting an elite wide receiver added to his weapons there that he can throw to. So Kyler is definitely a play against the Lions here, and like you said, every single week. And for me, there's about 6 quarterbacks that I feel like are in the conversation for the MVP at this moment. And obviously, you got your Mahomes and Lamar, and then you got Russell and Dak, and Kyler Murray's up there too. Josh Allen as well, and I even put Cam in that conversation if he can have some consistency with the Patriots. But for this one, like I said, Kyler's definitely going out there. Stafford's probably a high quarterback too for me. I'd be fine playing him as my second in a super flex league or something like that. But I probably this defense is a little bit tougher than what he has faced in the first 2 matchups. Pretty similar to the Packers defense that he faced last week. So I wouldn't expect him to go bananas in this game, but he may as well have to if he's got Kenny Golladay back, and they might be down in this matchup.
All right, and then your running backs here for Detroit. Is it safe to say that the Kerryon Johnson experience is over? We've just been holding on to him for so long, and every season he goes into the season healthy, and either ends up getting hurt, or even this year where he's not really banged up, he just can't take that job over. So are you done with Kerryon at this point?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't think you can, put him into your lineup with a hope for him, being consistent. He did pick up a touchdown in the game last week, but I don't read into that too much. He only had 8 carries, and it's a weird situation for him. They bring in a veteran and Adrian Peterson, and kind of give him the carries right away. So. Unless something happens to either Swift or Peterson, I think it's probably safe. You can just go ahead and drop Kerryon at this point. And, like I said, he's going to need an injury to be able to be relevant. Going over to the Cardinals side, we have Kenyon Drake in this one. It seems like a really good game for him. We saw Aaron Jones really take advantage of the matchup against the Lions last week. So I'd expect Kenyon Drake to have a solid, top 5 performance out of this game here.
Yeah, and this is the kind of matchup where if you're in one of those deeper flex leagues, Chase Edmonds could be a guy you could throw in there, and he could get some garbage time points for you too. Going back to Detroit though, Adrian Peterson I think is more of like a flex play for me, if at all. DeAndre Swift is more of a comfortable flex for me. I mean, if I had to choose between the two of them, I probably would lean Swift, but I'm trying to find maybe a different option outside of those two. But if I had to, Swift would be the guy for me. Yeah, and Kenyon Drake, I mean, he's I think he could have a really good game against this Lions defense. I'm comfortable playing him, and you drafted him kind of early, so kind of have to play him as long as he's healthy. Put him in there, and this is one of those games where you might get your return on investment for him there. Your wide receivers, we already talked about Galladay a little bit. Marvin Jones is there. Amendola is there. If Galladay's back, Amendola I think kind of takes a back seat. Marvin Jones, when the two of them are on the field together, Marvin Jones is a solid play, so I could see him as a flex wide receiver 2 option. DeAndre Hopkins is a plug and play wide receiver 1. Don't take him out. Larry Fitzgerald, that's where the Christian Kirk being out. Could he move into a flex role? Does he move into a flex role for you at all?
In deeper leagues, I think in like the normal 2 or 3 wide receiver and flex leagues, I'd probably still look to a different option. But one of them's going to have to work as the number 2 and be pretty successful behind Hopkins here. But it's obviously Fitz's turn with Kirk being out. So deeper leagues, I'd be fine, putting him in there.
And then if you're in like absolute super deeper leagues, Andy Isabella would be another name to bring up, but really we're not throwing any of these guys into our standard lineups and leagues that we're in. From tight ends, I think Hawkinson is a good play. They haven't really shown it this year, but Arizona last year was the worst against tight ends, pretty much allowing an average of one touchdown a game. Now there was some multi-touchdown games in there, so not every week was a touchdown, but they did allow 16 touchdowns to tight ends last year. And so, I mean, and Hawkinson, he has the size, he has the ability, he has the athleticism to be one of the top tier tight ends in the league. Again, if Galladay's back, I mean, that could open up Hawkinson a little bit more. You got just an extra weapon out there to kind of take away coverage, even though the coverage is different. I mean, you're not putting a cornerback on a tight end, or at least an outside corner on a tight end, but you do have some coverage opening up where Hawkinson could take advantage of the middle of the field and get you some PPR points and catches. The Cardinals, I mean, they really, I couldn't even think of a tight end that they've ever had in their history that I would play in fantasy. And still to this year, it's definitely not an option there for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for the Lions side, I feel like Kenny Galladay coming back really helps the rest of the team. I mean, a lot of people wanted to put in Marv Jones when Galladay was out, thinking he'd get more of the looks and more targets and things like that. But sometimes when you lose your top guy, it really hurts everybody because the whole coverage kind of shifts over and there's it makes the offense a little bit more sluggish. So hopefully Kenny Galladay coming back can really open up the field, like you were saying, for Hawkinson and for Mar Jones to really produce a solid game out of this contest and yeah, I think they have Dan Arnold. The Cardinals do a tight end, but I don't think anybody is really putting him in there to play in like any kind of normal league.
All right, and then our final game of Sunday is. Well, they have this labeled wrong. Yeah. Our final game of Sunday is the Green Bay Packers going up against the New Orleans Saints. You got huge Aaron Jones coming off his last week game. The injuries in this game, you got Devontae Adams, who is doubtful. That's the biggest one on both sides of the ball. Well, I guess Michael Thomas you consider out there too, but he is out. But Devontae Adams is doubtful. Other than that, there's really not a lot of big injuries for Green Bay. On the Saints, the only one really is Michael Thomas. So, for the most part, aside from your first round wide receivers, pretty much a pretty healthy game here as far as your offensive firepower goes. Still got your Camaras and your Aaron Jones and your Rodgers and your Breeze. So, breaking down the quarterbacks again, you got Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. Both, I think, could have really solid games. I think they're both in that QB1, possible QB2 territory. Let me just bring up the sheet here and see where we had them. As a consensus, we had them at. Rodgers was at 8 and Breeze was at 18. So Rodgers a QB1, Breeze a QB2. And it kind of makes a little bit of sense. I think that was ranked with the assumption that Devontae Adams is playing. So even if Devontae Adams doesn't play, drop Rodgers a couple spots, he's still on that quarterback 1, quarterback 2 borderline. But he is. It's going to be a good quarterback matchup, a matchup that we do like to see consistently every year. Any thoughts on the quarterbacks here?
Yeah, I was watching the Good Morning Football yesterday morning. They were really highlighting this game, and it really sucks that both of them are going to be without their top options. So, we get the Packers and Saints, what we expect to be a really good game to watch and potential playoff matchup down the road here. But both of them are going to be without their stud wide receivers, so that's going to kind of hinder it a little bit. For me, I think. Aaron Rodgers can rebound from losing that top receiver a little bit more than Breeze, just because of the other weapons that they have. I feel like the wide receiver 2s and 3s that have shown themselves for Green Bay is a little bit better than what the Saints have at the moment. So I'd be fine playing Rodgers. In a one quarterback league, I'm fine benching Breeze if you have a different option to go with. maybe like you were talking about earlier, if somebody has Mitchell Trubisky or something like that, he'd be one I'd be willing to throw in over Drew Brees, considering the matchups and considering that Michael Thomas is out. So if you got somebody like that, maybe Brees is better off on the bench this week. He didn't have a great game against the Raiders last week without Thomas. A lot of checkdowns to Kamara, and Trey Quinn got a little bit of a bump in targets, but for the most part, if you played him, he didn't give you a great game. So deeper leagues, you can still play him in like a 2 quarterback or a super flex league. I'd be fine playing him with that. But a normal 1 quarterback league, maybe I'm looking somewhere else instead of Drew Brees.
All right, and then your running back matchup is one of the more marquee running back matchups of the day. I think we had the same kind of situation in Cincinnati and in Philadelphia where we had two RB1s. Again, you got two more RB1s. You got Aaron Jones going up against Alvin Kamara. Not taking any of them out of your lineup. I mean, there's even a decent chance that you have both of them on your team. So that's pretty good if you have both of them there. Grabbed Kamara in the first and then Jones in the second. Yeah, I mean, I'm very comfortable playing both. I don't have any issue with either of them. Latavius Murray for the Saints really doesn't scare me as much. Kamara has been great the past couple of games, and Aaron Jones, I think he's the RB1 going into this game this season. So there's really no reason to bench any of them. You're plugging, playing them, and feeling real confident about them.
Yeah, for sure. I think both of them are probably going to be the leaders of their offensive production. I think it's going to be going through Aaron Jones and it's going to be going through Alvin Kamara. And I have a couple DFS lineups where I put both of them in there. I went up and spent heavy on these two running backs and filled it in with a couple other cheap quarterbacks that we have talked about in the last 2 episodes here. So that's what I expect out of these two. I expect a lot of firepower coming out of the running back position. We saw Kamara last week against the Raiders on Monday night. He got a lot of just dump off receptions per usual, and then he was able to pound in 2 rushing touchdowns on the goal line. So that's my biggest thing that I was kind of looking at is just how the goal line's going to go, because you kind of look at maybe the carries are going to be like 60-40 in favor of Kamara, and then obviously he'll get the passing work, but how's that goal line going to go? And it was very promising for Alvin Kamara owners that drafted him in the first round to see him get the goal line work and get 2 touchdowns there. So definitely I'd feel safe playing both of these guys, obviously.
All right, and then your wide receiver options. Again, you already touched on that before we started. This segment was you're looking at this game and you're like, wow, you got Devontae Adams against Michael Thomas, you got Breeze against Rodgers, but it's not the case. You still got Breeze against Rodgers, but you're stuck with guys like MVS, Allen Lazard, and then on the Saints side, you got Tre'Quan Smith, you got Emmanuel Sanders. So solid options. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to bench all of them, but I'm not saying throw all of them into your lineup with confidence. It's more. I mean, Tre'Quan Smith had a solid game last week. Emmanuel Sanders kind of disappointed a little bit. MVS and Allen Lazard. It's Aaron Rodgers really doesn't. He's not the kind of guy to really pick and choose favorites as much as you like to think. I mean, he's going to throw to the open guy. So whoever's open, he's going to throw it to. So you're probably looking at all wide receiver 3/flex plays, but one of these guys is going to step up. Maybe one on each side is going to step up. It's just who's it going to be? I'd feel more comfortable throwing them into a DFS lineup than throwing them into my weekly lineup. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I'm fine playing them. It's just I want to have some stability somewhere else if I am playing them.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're a little bit, more safer in DFS, but I'd be fine playing them in season long. I mean, we still have Rodgers versus Breeze, so it's not like we have I don't know, Derek Carr versus Jeff Driscoll or something like that. These are the 2 of the top quarterbacks in the league, so They're going to be throwing the ball around. They're going to be moving the ball up and down, and even without the two top receivers for each of them, I'd expect a lot of points to be scored in this matchup. Um, Breeze also has Jared Cook, so that he's got a better tight end situation than Rodgers does, and so this is the fifth matchup between these two quarterbacks. So both of all of the first four have been pretty high scoring affairs. There's been like a blowout on each side, and then a couple. There was like two matchups that they were really close, but scored over 50 points. So that's what you can expect with Breeze and Rodgers. They're gonna be going toe to toe, and some of these guys are gonna be a little bit targeted a little bit more with both Adams and Thomas out. So I'd be fine putting them in a season long league as like a flex play for this Sunday night matchup. But for the most part, I think I'd be more comfortable, splitting them up into DFS lineups here and there.
Yeah, and then you already touched on the last name that I wanted to mention. That was Jared Cook. I think he's a solid tight end play. Could be a TE1 this week if you wanted to throw him into one of your lineups. Um, if he's available out there, if you have him, throw him in there, especially if you lost a guy like George Kittle or somebody like that. Other than that, I mean, I think that pretty much does it for the fantasy relevant players for this game and all the other games. It is nice to have a guy on Sunday night or even Monday night. Monday night's matchup is the Chiefs versus the Ravens, which there's a lot of fantasy relevant players in that game. So it is nice to have some investment into the night games. That way, but also at the same time, it's nice to not have investment into the games because then you could just sit down and watch the game and relax. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd rather have a guy and be rooting for something. But it is that's the matchups up until Monday night for week 3. Got a lot of good games on the schedule this week. One thing that we didn't really cover while going over all these matchups are the defensive matchups. And just going through and just I was looking at this throughout the week. Like a lot of your it's either a top tier defense that was already drafted is either going up against a good offense like Chicago, for example. They're going up against Atlanta, so they're not available on your waiver wire. But at the same time, it's like it's going to be hard to play them. Or you got teams that are coming off of back to back favorable games like the Colts, the Titans, where you don't like they're not going to be available on your waiver wire either because somebody picked them up last week. So it's a really tough weekend for defenses here. Just off the top of my head, I mean, if I were to go and throw one out there that could be available, well, I know 100% that they're available, and have like even a 5% chance of being confident in playing them, I'd probably lean towards the Giants, believe it or not, going up against the very, very depleted San Francisco 49ers. So if you're looking for a streamer defense and you don't want to play Chicago against Atlanta, or you don't want to play Buffalo against the Rams, the Giants, I mean, they have an opportunity to get to Nick Mullins, even though we've seen some solid games out of Nick Mullins the year that Jimmy Garoppolo arrived in San Francisco. That's probably the I don't want to say the best. I'm not going to use the word best because it's not. It's probably the only defense that's available that has somewhat of a plus matchup because of the fact of what San Francisco is going into the game with. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. They're probably going to be, like you said, owned or unowned in basically every league out there. So, a couple other streaming ones I was looking at. The Browns have a potential to have a good matchup against Haskins and the football team there. Um, I think the Chargers may have a good matchup, but they're probably already owned. Same thing with the
Yeah.
Bucks; they're probably already owned. The Eagles' defense could potentially be good against Cincinnati if they're able to get to Burrow, get pressure on him, things like that. So there's a couple ones, but generally overall, I think it's a little bit lower for the streaming defenses this week. I don't think there's really any out there that are going to go and shut down the opposing offense and get you a ton of points. But I think you'd more look at the defense that's going to kill you the least this week. Just trying to put one in there that's going to get you a decent amount of points and roll with that.
Yeah, there's it's tough this week. The last 2 weeks for streaming defenses has been a little bit tough, and the reason I didn't bring up the Browns was because they came off the Bengals game, so a lot of people already had them. Other than that, I think we are all set with this episode. Tomorrow at around 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern is our Start Sit show. That's our live show. Jordan and the Zacks usually go live for that. Are you going to be available for that?
Oh yeah, I'll be here.
Okay, so you'll be there, and I know Caveman should be there. We just got to see if Doc is going to be joining you guys. But so that show is available tomorrow at 11 a.m. If you didn't hear any of your players or you're kind of questionable between some players, make sure you tune into that show tomorrow. Make sure you guys check out our website. That's thefantasymafia.com. That's where you can find all of our rankings, all of our articles that we do. Check out our Facebook pages, The Fantasy Mafia and Fantasy Hotspot. The Fantasy Hotspot is where it's basically the forum. You go in there, you can post your own start sit questions. You can answer other people's start sit questions. You can post your trade questions. You could just ask us what our favorite color is and we'll answer. So just post them there, and we run Razzes in different contests all the time, so make sure you check that out. And then finally, check us out on Twitter. Doctor's Twitter is Dr. Fantasy Sports. My Twitter is Jerry Wilkie FM, and I know you're still working on getting a Twitter or getting all set up with that, aren't you? Right?
Yeah, I mean I have one, but I'm just not as active on it as I am compared to just on our forum with the hotspot there. So I'll throw up an article that I've wrote or one of us has put up that I wanted to share every now and then. But for the most part, I'm just available in the hotspot.
All right. So until tomorrow with our start sit, we'll see you guys then, and enjoy your Saturday night.